This figure is called box and whisker plot. So we have two box and whisker plots. One is for the yield number 4 and the other is for the yield number 8. This line is called whisker. This line is also called whisker. So this is the lower whisker and this is upper whisker. This is basically a box. You can see here there is a scale along this box and whisker plot. On the scale, the value corresponding to this point, on the scale, value corresponding to this point, which is corresponding to the point where your lower whisker is starting. That is the minimum value of the data. And where your box is starting, the value on the scale corresponding to the point where the box is starting is your quartile number 1. So approximately you can say that your quartile number 1 here is 12.5 because it's exactly in the middle of 10 and 15. You see this point where your lower whisker is starting, that is corresponding to somewhere around 11. So you can say your minimum value in the data is 11. And the value that is crossing your box is called median. And the scale value corresponding to this line here is a median. So you can say in the yield number 4, the median is approximately 14 or maybe a little above than the 14. And then where your box is ending, that is your quartile number 3. So a value corresponding to this place on the scale is your quartile number 3. So approximately I can have an idea that your quartile number 3 would be somewhere around 17 because it's little below than the midpoint of the 15 and 20. And now this is your upper whisker, and where your upper whisker is ending, that is your maximum value in the data. And you can see here that is approximately equal to 18.5 or somewhere close to the 19. So similarly, we have a box and whisker plot for the yield number 8. And you see here, this box whisker plot of the yield number 8 is on the lower side and this is on the upper side. Now, what this is indicating? This is indicating that if you consider the median of the yield number 8, that is corresponding to this point along the scale, and that is approximately 7, and the median of the yield number 4 is around 14. So you can see that the average of the 8 is smaller than the average of yield number 4 because its plot is little lower than the yield number 4. And similarly, you can calculate all these descriptive measures as we have calculated for the yield number 4, that corresponding to this line, the value on the scale is indicating the minimum point of the yield number 8. And then corresponding to the box where the box is starting, the point on the corresponding scale is quartile number 1. And then the middle line, which is cutting your box, the value corresponding on the scale is the median, and similarly for the quartile number 3 and the maximum. So you can see how this plot is important, that this only one point is providing you minimum value, quartile 1, median, quartile number 3, and the maximum value in the data. So you see in this box and whisker plot, we have 4 portions here. One of the portion is this, second is this, third is this, and fourth is this. In each of these parts, in each of these 4 parts, 25% of the observations are lying. And now the question arises that if the 25% of the values are lying in each part of this box and whisker plot, why these gaps are different from each other? You see here, this gap is too small compared to this gap. In discussing the yield number 8, if you determine the gap between quartile 1 and the median, this gap is too smaller than the gap between median and the quartile number 3. Whereas this portion contained 25%, this portion also contained 25% of the data observations. Actually, this small gap indicates that the values in this portion, though these are 25%, but these are very close to each other with very small differences. And the 25% of the values here, these are comparatively away from each other by larger differences. So you can see here the variation between these 25% observations. Here, the variation between the 25% observations is very low, whereas in this portion, the variation between 25% observations is higher compared to these portions. So in this way, we can determine that in which part of the data the variation is higher and in which portion of the data the variation between the values is smaller. So discussing the yield number 8, if you calculate the length of this lower whisker, upper whisker, and the difference between Q1 and median, and then Q3 to median. So the smallest of the difference is this one. So you can see here in the yield number 8, those values which are lying between quartile number 1 and the median has smallest variation in the data, and the difference which is median to the quartile number 3, it is largest in this entire box and whisker of the yield number 8. This difference is largest. So we can see and we can say that the variation between these 25% of the observations is largest in this yield number 8. So that's how we can have many informations from these box and whisker plots, and I would say it is a post-mortem of the data. You can judge whether which of the data has smaller average, which of the data has smaller dispersion, and at which place the variation is smaller or larger. So in this way, we can have many such type of information from this box and whisker plot.